Thank you very much, Sarah. And as I said, we're in the Struhl Arts Centre in Omagh for a special Election 2011 debate. Jim Allister is the leader of the TUV. Mr. Allister is a barrister specialising in criminal law and has also served as an MEP for 5 years. Right, well, let's get straight down to business this evening. And our first question comes from Valerie Duncan. Valerie.
Does the panel believe that the community's response to the murder of Constable Ronan Kerr shows how out of step the citizens are? OK,
thank you very much indeed for that, Valerie.
Well, I think to us all, this was a violent, dastardly murder by whatever wing of the IRA, doesn't really matter. But it was equally vile and dastardly to murder 300 policemen down the years, to have Sinn Féin's IRA do that. And whereas this time we had the right words from Sinn Féin leadership, we had the galling hypocrisy of the continuance of the justifying of every one of those murders. And that is wrong. And it is time that Sinn Féin now condemned, regretted and deplored the murders that their organisation carried out, because it was the carrying out of those murders and the rewarding of those murders through political advance which causes other terrorists to believe they can succeed. Because they look at Martin McGuinness and they say violence worked for him, and they argue why wouldn't it work? Whether people like it or not, there are thousands of innocent victims out there, made victims by Mr. O'Dowd's IRA. Yes, lots of people would like to forget about them, but sorry. Murder is wrong, and I won't forget about it.
We'll stop you there. Let's move on to our second question, and that's from Geraldine McGurk. Geraldine.
Yes. While councillors across this area have told us they agree with building the radiotherapy unit in Altnagalvin, how come the Minister for Health didn't listen to those councillors?
OK, thank you very much indeed, Geraldine. Another strong issue. So this is something you can't blame on Sinn Féin then, Jim Allister?
This is something which can be blamed on the collective failure of the entire executive. It is an absolute scandal that we have a cancer unit which can't be run at Altnagalvin. And why? Because this executive has squandered tens of millions of pounds to the point where the health service is underfunded. We spend 400 million on useless north-south bodies that do nothing for anyone. We were able to find 61 million for the GAA, 60 million for football, when they only asked for 30. We spent 10 million on local government reform that never happened.
Let's stay on health.
If some of that money had been used instead of squandered, we wouldn't have this problem.
Jim Allister.
It is preposterous when we have a cancer unit that can't be opened, when we have 55,000 people on waiting lists beyond 9 weeks, for John O'Dowd to say, oh, but giving 60 million to the GAA is a contribution to health. Really, unless this executive and this Stormont gets its priorities right, then we're going to go on with more squander and more loss in the frontline services where we need to put the expenditure.
And we have a question from Marie-Claire Devlin.
Do you think lowering corporation tax in line with the South is a good idea? And if not, what ideas do you have to grow the economy and encourage investment?
Thank you very much indeed, Marie-Claire. But let me just bring you in there, Jim Allister. John O'Dowd talks about the harmonisation of a tax rate across Northern Ireland, or across Ireland. Surely that is a sensible idea, given that it's a relatively small country. Competing against one another would not be good for either country.
Strapping ourselves to the fastest sinking economy in Europe, the bankrupt Irish Republic, is the last thing we should be doing. We are part of one of the world's 6th largest economies, the UK. Yet under this executive, we have orientated our economy away from that strong economy towards the basket case that is the Irish Republic. And this idea of reducing corporation tax, and it's quite clear from Mr. O'Dowd that it is a political agenda as far as he's concerned, this idea of reducing it is a totally speculative gamble about which the only certainty is that there will be a £300 million cut in the block grant.
Marie-Claire, did you hear enough from the panel there on the idea of what ideas they have to grow the economy?
Yes, they're talking about investment, foreign investment. Do you not think direct foreign investment is detrimental to our economy? And Jim, how come there's no candidate standing West Tyrone for your party?
Well, I'm very sorry that you haven't got that opportunity. We're a small party. We have to direct our resources. We're the only political party in Northern Ireland that doesn't have a full of public money into it. And therefore we have to direct our resources where we can. The shambles brought to education by this executive will be one of the abiding legacies of its failure. The despair of parents and children is unbelievable. And that comes from the ministerial tyranny that we've had from Katrina Rayan. Whereas at the heart of education should lie parental choice, not ministerial tyranny. And if parental choice was embedded as the core value and issue when it comes to transfer, then we wouldn't have this. But you know, Sinn Féin have so much to answer for in regard to the ruination of education, but so has every party that put them into government and allowed them to bring that ruination to education.
Let's now move on to our next question, and we go to Lauren McNabb. Lauren.
If Sinn Féin were to obtain the First Minister position, would Unionists be able to accept it?
Thank you, Lauren. Jim Allister, is this something that the TUV would be able to accept?
I don't want an IRA godfather like McGuinness as joint First Minister as he is at present, or as First Minister as is a possibility, because it is utterly unacceptable. But the answer lies in the lap of every Unionist MLA, because McGuinness could only ever become First Minister if Unionists nominated a deputy. So the challenge to the DUP and the Ulster Unionists is, will they join with us in saying that no Unionist will be nominated as a deputy, and therefore Martin McGuinness, if it happened, couldn't occupy the office for 1 second. And of course we're in this position because the DUP wanted us to be here. That's why at Westminster they connived to have this change made, to create the boogeyman. The man they chuckle with for 4 years, suddenly in an election they want to create him into a boogeyman to try and duress people into voting for them. That's why at Westminster they didn't oppose it, didn't put down a single amendment to avoid the change, didn't seek to vote against it, and in the House of Lords their peers voted for it.
Okay, Jim Allister. No, okay, go ahead, Jim.
My problem is a Republican First Minister being put upon a Unionist majority in the Assembly. That is not democratic, and that is why it is right that the First Minister, if you're to have that system, should come from the biggest tradition in the Assembly, whoever that might be. But the question Ireland has yet to answer is, will her party nominate a deputy if their partner McGuinness is the biggest?
Our final question this evening is then from India Fahy. India.
Does the panel have any advice for young couples that may be planning to get married in the near future?
So, of course, we have the royal wedding fortnight tomorrow, so quite an apt question.
Marriage is a wonderful institution. Like any worthwhile thing, it requires work. And I think it requires give and take. And yes, I'm capable of give and take.
Just out of interest, India.